about miracles. He's even speaking against the miracle of his wounds. He's saying it may
Interesting.
be explained by some medical science in 100 years from now. He says that's not the real miracle. So it's very fascinating. It's a very unexpected preaching that he's even taken the importance off of the miracle of the wounds himself. Welcome to Unpacking the Problem. My name's Jeff Cook. We got Greg Volk and John Ostrander. Say hi, guys.
Howdy.
Hello.
All right. Today we are talking about the stigmata. All right. This came from a conversation a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the Men in Black. I don't know how stigmata came up, but John was a little bit surprised by some of it, and we thought let's just dig into it deep. Okay. There's also really quick. Before we were coming out, we're starting really late. You guys won't know because we're going to upload this later. It's pre-recorded. But we were talking about AI and economy, and we're going to do that show soon too. So Greg's going to come up with a whole new financial system because with capitalism, you got to do stuff. And
That doesn't include the Fed.
well, yeah. Well, first we got to get rid of the Fed,
Yeah,
and
that's what I
then
care about.
find out what it is we're going to do. Otherwise, live performances, good. Sports, yeah. Who wants to watch robots fight? So all that stuff is going to be good. But for those of us who aren't athletic or too old to play sports, I don't know what we're going to do. Somehow this needs to be discussed. We'll discuss that soon. Right now, stigmata. Okay, before we start, and I'll give a little background on what it is. Greg, why don't you fill us in what you know about it, what you think, and then John, what you know about it, what you think about it. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, well, I don't know a lot about it because you're the Catholic and I'm not Catholic. It seems as though Catholics are more into this kind of stuff than Protestants typically are, but it's and as far as I know, everybody that's had stigmata was Catholic. It's
Christian
interesting
stigmata.
that,
There's
that
a couple
no
other
non-Catholics have
there's a
ever
couple,
had
yeah,
it.
there's a couple non-Christian stigmatas too out there, but we'll get into
Are
that
there?
later.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
news to me. So like I said, you know more about it than I do. But as far as anyway, what it is the wounds on Christ's hands when he was crucified. He had nail wounds in his hands, and after he appeared, after he rose again, he still had those wounds in his hands and on his feet, and that's what convinced
Stephen.
Thomas
Or
that he
Thomas,
was
doubting Thomas, yes, sorry.
doubting Thomas that he was real. Put your hands in my hands. So
Yeah.
the stigmata were a big deal, but it turns out that apparently a lot of other people have had stigmata, and so all of those people that have had it have been declared, or most of them have been declared saints by the Catholic Church. And so the first one that I know of was Saint Francis of Assisi. There may have been some prior to that, but that's almost 1,000 years ago.
A lot unreported probably.
The early Middle Ages. He apparently had it, and he was a well-known figure, whatever you might think of him, and a lot of people attested to the fact that he had those. So how do you explain that? Did he do it to himself, or did he not have them? You have to explain it somehow. So a lot of a lot of the examples that I know of are more recent, 20th century. There was a guy named Saint Padre Pio, where is he from?
Italy.
I'm looking it up here. From Italy, yeah, okay. And he apparently had them. There's a picture of him that I'm looking at right now on Wikipedia that shows him having the stigmata. So
I'll share
was
some
the
clips
picture
with that.
doctored? What's that?
I'll share some video and clips of
Yeah,
him too.
again, I only know what I can see on Wikipedia, really. So I'm not an expert by any stretch, but there was another gal, Miriam Teresa Carmile, who was canonized in 2019. She was from India, and she had it. I mean, would you say there's a dozen different
Close to
people?
400 reported cases.
Wow. Okay. Then
Since
that's
St.
way
Francis
more
of
than
Assisi. Since St. Francis of Assisi.
And of those 400, would you say the vast majority are in the 20th century?
It's definitely increasing because there are
Okay.
two current that I know of, two living right now.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so
now
we'll get
the
in.
examples I know of, they didn't have it when they were young, and then suddenly they had it.
Right.
They got it like in middle age, and they didn't necessarily want it. It just showed up. And that's kind of weird. So I don't know if that's true for all 400 cases, but that's true in a couple of the cases that I know of. So that's the extent of my knowledge. You know more about it, way more about it than I do, Jeff. So why don't you maybe?
Yeah, I kind of grew up with it, but we'll get
Okay,
into some
I
of the
did not grow up with it. It's it's something that's relatively new to me. So I'm a little bit doubting. I'll be honest.
Sure.
But with 400 examples, obviously it's
There's something going on.
something there, and I don't doubt that. What I'm confused about, is it? You said that there's some non-Christians. Are there some Christians who are non-Catholics who have
None of them
stigmata?
got the marks of none of the non-Christians. Let's focus just on non-Christians. None of the non-Christians have ever gotten the marks to represent the marks of Jesus. None in the hands and feet.
Okay,
But there are some cases of some other religions and monks and meditating and shaman who get marks. But whether that's from demons or what, but they're not the marks of Christ. So
interesting.
I differentiate between those two.
Still doesn't answer my question. Are there any non-Catholic
There are
Christians?
none.
None. Okay,
And
that
there's a
just
reason for
surprises
that.
me,
There's a
but I
reason
don't
for
know.
that, which I'll get into.
Okay,
And it has nothing to do with the Protestant religions being less than or anything like that. If there is a reason, though, I'll get
okay.
into it. Okay.
I'd be curious about that.
Okay. John.
John?
Yeah.
I'd like to learn more about it, but I'm going to say, because I suffer from psoriasis, I'm going to say it's a bad case psoriasis. I had it on my palms, but not to that extent, right? Had it on my feet. And and I just need clarification.
Yeah.
The location of the crucifixion of Jesus and other people that were crucified during that time. Can you guys still hear me? You
Yeah.
guys
Yeah. We hear
froze.
you very good.
Okay. They didn't go through the wrist. They went through the hands, correct?
Some crucifixions went through the hands and they would tie with ropes. They want those crucifixions to last longer. If it goes through the
Yeah,
wrists, they
because
die sooner. Both skeletons have been found historically.
okay, that's for the clarification. But other than like a skin disorder, I'm open to hear more about it. I was brought up Lutheran, so that topic never came up, and I'd like to understand the naysayers that maybe are Protestant or Lutheran or whatever. What do they say about it? So I'm curious to go on the ride here to see what kind of information you uncovered.
All right. Well, let's see. First of all, we got some lagging. I see that on my screen, you guys are frozen. So I don't know if that's being
Oh,
recorded like that or what. But all right, you're moving. A delay is fine. A complete freeze up usually ends up showing up on the recording. So we'll see what that happens to. All right. So the common thing with the stigmata is that it is most often all five wounds of Christ. Some have an extra wound on the shoulder from where Jesus carried the cross. That was
mhm.
Padre Pio had that. I'm not. There are some others who have had visions of, because it's not something that's mentioned in Scripture. His wound of his cross, and so it's some. There's definitely something about perception and the stigmata. So we definitely got to touch on that. First of all,
Okay, Jeff, can I stop you
yeah,
for a second? You
sure.
said five wounds, so I just want to
Yeah,
identify two hands, 2 feet, and the side. Is that the five
correct.
wounds?
That's right.
Okay,
And
so
then yes, and then the extra one on the shoulder where
they're
they're
carrying
carrying
the
the
cross.
cross.
Yep, I
So
got it.
and it usually wasn't the cross; it was the top portion. They'd hold it over their shoulder when they carried it. And Padre Pio never mentioned, or at least I couldn't find any mention of which shoulder it was, but it's traditionally thought to be the right shoulder. But how do we know? Not I know that Jesus was left-handed. We don't know. So there's no recording of it, but it has been attributed to be the right. I don't think Padre Pio ever mentioned it. Okay, so the things about the stigmata, the ones that are, let's just say, when there's almost 400 cases, Those are approved cases by the Catholic Church. So we're going to go
Did you
to
say
one
approved or proved?
approved. So what they do is they take that person to the Vatican and they have the Vatican doctors examine them, because the last thing the Vatican wants is somebody out there committing fraud, and then they get caught, and then it belittles people's religion. So they do put them through a test of like 40 days, where they investigate it, or over quite a long time. So if you're a priest, which it is rare, it's kind of becoming more common that priests, the first priest who ever had the stigmata that is known was Padre Pio, but now there are currently 2 living priests who have it. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'll say, so they do test
Now, did they
it.
have independent medical, like at the Vatican,
Yes,
to come
they
in and
have.
vouch it?
Well,
Or
the Vatican's one is done first, and that's not independent. They're independent of the person, but they do it. But there are often doctors and interviewers, people who come in and investigate people throughout the course of their lives. So Padre Pio's had many, many, many people look over it, doctors, atheists, and that's the same as like the Shroud of Turin and some other things. Almost all of them have been. All of these cases have been independently not validated. Like, they can't say that these things happen from God. It's just that they don't have any medical explanation for it. So it's not psoriasis. They rule those things out. It doesn't resemble psoriasis at all. It is a wound that doesn't stop bleeding and doesn't heal, and it
that sounds like
lasts,
psoriasis.
but it doesn't get infected either.
It does get. Oh, okay.
It
Mine-
doesn't get infected. So it never stops bleeding, never gets infected, and it doesn't smell. It smells for most cases, like flowers.
Wow.
So it's
Most
very
wounds don't
strange.
smell like flowers.
No, it's a very strange. It's a very strange wound. So enough that people have
And everybody
are
that's had
amazed by it.
stigmata has the same kind of wound that smells
No.
like flowers.
No, in fact, that's why I say there is some matter of perception that needs to be taken into account. Some is in the hands and some is in the wrist. Now, so if we go back so we have to take it from spiritual, psychological. I don't really get into psychological, because I think the study of psychology is really the study of the soul. So I'd rather deal with that spiritually. I have a big problem. In fact, 4 of the 5 founders of psychology did consider psychological problems to be a problem with the soul. Greg turned green again.
I don't know why. You can hear me, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
We're
hear
just going to
you.
be green.
Just
for a
figure it
while.
out, and then we can talk.
It just comes
You
back.
don't have to talk
Sorry.
through your technical problems. Just you'll come back when you figure it out.
Right, but it is shocking what happens. All right, so really quick, yeah, so
It's digital stigmata.
yeah, exactly. So the first thing I want to mention is that the early Jews and Arab, and I'm gonna look up the language really quick. The word for arm and hand, they didn't differentiate from anatomy. So in Lithuanian, my wife's language, they refer to this whole area as the hand. So there is only one word for hands. Say, my hands. And I'm like, that's not your hand. That's your wrist. She's like, no, we don't have a word for the wrist. That is the same as the case for the language that Jesus and them used as well. So when they said the nails through the hands, it meant anywhere from here to here. So then we get into perception. Is later on other religions, for instance, I don't know if it's Latin or Greek. They do have a different word for wrist. So when the Greeks started to get it and they started calling it a hand, they started drawing their pictures and descriptions as the nails being here. But in Aramaic and some other languages, it was probably the wrist. Now the Shroud of Turin, which we can't really discuss this without talking about the Shroud of Turin, which we'll get to in a second. But let me just talk. That is the case. So it is something that doctors have looked at, especially in modern times, that these people do not have a medical condition. They would recognize psoriasis. So they have already ruled out psoriasis. There are other There are other diseases that are weird to happen from pressure points and stuff like that. But we have to go back then to scripture. Now, we were talking a little bit ago about
Excuse me.
St. Paul, and this is not of any Christian religion. This is my own personal belief. I believe that St. Paul had the stigmata. I have two reasons why I think he did, and one reason why I think he might not have. But the first reason, he described in Galatians, I don't remember the number, I got it written down. He described that you all must now believe that I am of Christ because I have, in Greek, the stigmata. That was the word he used. All right. What does stigmata mean? It means branding. It means you are now proven or evidence of ownership. That's what it means. So stigmata means evidence. The original word stigmata came from the Bible. It's in the Greek Bible for Paul's marks. Now,
But he was persecuted and whipped and
yes, but let's get into that. Go on.
all right.
I have a whole lot of things I could add to
Because
that.
a lot of people
Go,
say
you guys
they
talk first,
show,
then I'll yeah.
they show the markings of Christ because they too were persecuted by
Right.
believing.
That's the common belief. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Go ahead.
just want to
Traditional belief, I should say.
just want to say one verse by Paul is, I am crucified with Christ, therefore I no longer live. That sort of implies he meant it literally if in fact he had stigmata. So that'd be one thing. The other thing that sort of I'm thinking of is the idea of being a slave to Christ. He talks about that as
Yeah.
well. And in the Old Testament, it makes reference to a bondservant who chooses to, he says, I love my master and I want to continue serving my master. I believe this is in Leviticus or Deuteronomy somewhere. And so you can choose to have your ear punctured, to the doorpost. I don't know. It just reminds me of, a puncture mark through your body is similar. So it's a way of showing that you are
That's interesting. I haven't thought
you're
about that
crucified
one.
with Christ. I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
what.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, here's the biggest reason why I don't believe the traditional concept of that line. Let me get it. And this is not in Greek, but let me find it here. Galatians. Let me get the exact quote, and I'm not going to do the exact quote. I'm going to do the paraphrased exact quote because every Bible has a different translation. But if you use the Greek, just slip in the word stigmata for this sentence. But let me go here. Give me 1 second. Galatians.
Not sure what you're looking up here.
St. Paul's own words.
Okay, in Scripture.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell me what you're looking for, and I can probably find it.
Well, that's the thing. I forget the number. It's
I
Galatians.
mean, not the
where it
number, but I
says-
mean, what's the sentiment?
Jesus, Paul says, y'all, you have no reason to question me anymore because I have the marks of Christ.
Okay.
Here we go. Galatians 6:17. Okay. From now on, let no one cause me trouble, for I bear in my body the marks of Jesus. But in Greek, it was the stigmata. Okay. And the word, I mean, it's stigmata, the Greek sigma, whatever. All right. This in ancient world referred to physical marks or brand. They could signify ownership, punishment, or devotion. Okay. So most people, Catholics, Protestants, I think Orthodox, could take this to mean, in fact, in some translations, it means stripes of Christ, assuming he meant whip marks. So
Yes, that's
but
what
the
I've
problem-
always
yeah.
understood that verse to mean. So the stigmata interpretation is totally new to me as a
there's a big problem with that, and I'm gonna give you an analogy. I like analogies.
That's fine.
Let's take St. Paul and call him Saul before he met Christ. Saul. Let's take Saul and compare him to Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Oh man.
Now
I
he was
refuse
having
to
people.
go
He was
any
having
further
his.
at this point.
Was that?
I've refused to go any further at this point.
Well, come on. This is going to help you to
Just
understand
go.
why that previous comment makes no sense. So Paul was persecuting his political opponent and having them thrown in jail and so on and so forth because he also believed in it strongly. And let's just say Hillary came, and let's just say that Trump didn't get elected, and all of a sudden we were all in hiding as Christians, and there was a small group of us back like the old days of the Christians where they were being persecuted and in hiding. And all of a sudden Hillary came into our group and said, I have found Christ. Are you going to believe her if she has whip marks on her back?
It froze up.
What part did
What
you
froze
last
up?
hear? Greg, did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you.
All right. So what I said,
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
okay,
Sorry.
what I said was, imagine if you were living in hiding, we were being persecuted as Christians, and Hillary came to us and said, "I'm with you guys. I have found Christ." Would you believe her if she had whip marks on her back? Let me differentiate. Whip marks are not the same marks Jesus had. The whip marks Paul had were from the Jews. They used leather like they're whipping a horse. What
Right.
Jesus had was scourging, metal pieces stuck in there. All right.
Yes.
If Hillary came with some whip marks like that, which aren't going to even leave scars, you might have a few scars, but they'd be minor. I'd look at that and say, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
It's not convincing at all. Now, if she came in with the
That's a good
stigmata,
argument.
if she came in with the stigmata, you're going to believe her.
Well, be more
More
likely
apt to.
more apt to, yeah.
More apt to. You still be
I'm not going to
cautious, like
believe
the early.
Hillary for anything, but
But that was the way they thought with St. Paul,
yeah.
right? He
Sure.
was the biggest
Yeah.
enemy.
Yeah. Well,
But
just to be clear,
stigmata is the convincing. Whip marks on the back are not.
Galatians was agreed by pretty much all scholars that that was the first book that he wrote. So it would make sense that he might even then, although it was still 10 years after his conversion. So, but even then, there
Yeah.
might be some people that disbelieve him. So it was more important that he gained credibility early in his ministry. So it makes sense what you're saying.
Well, 100%. Why would it even say that in scripture? He was
Yeah.
trying to prove himself, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But he didn't need
You
to do
know.
that so much later on in his ministry because
But
he
they
already
Understood at that
they were
point.
very cautious of him in the beginning, though.
Sure. That
Well,
makes sense.
with good reason.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not agreeing with you 100% either, but
So let's just say I don't. This is one of the two reasons. The first reason is because that's where the word it's always stuck, meaning that stigmata has ever since meant that Greek word means you got the marks of Christ on your hands and feet and side. It's never left the vernacular of Christians. So that's one. The second is it's not a convincing argument to say they have whip marks. It's like a lot of people were whipped by the Jews, or you could even say, "Hey, you're going to be a spy. We're going to whip you first." It's not convincing. Something miraculous, that's convincing. You are definitely Jesus's own. It is evidence of ownership of Christ, and so that would be convincing enough to bring somebody like Paul to become a Christian, where he had something useful to say to the world that God thought. The one reason it may not be true, where he might not, in my opinion, where he may not, well, go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to formulate this because it's
okay. That's fine. Well, just some
question.
comments and then I'm just kind of reacting to what you're saying.
Okay.
I like what you're saying. First of all, in your defense, this is at the very end of the book of Galatians. So this is kind of like his closing thoughts before the very last verse, the grace of our Lord be with your spirit. Amen. That was the end of it, right after he talked about the marks in his body. So I guess that would be the point at which you'd say trying to establish credibility. So apparently he is doing that. So that's arguing in your favor. And the other against that would be the mark of the Lord, which is again talked about in the Old Testament, and it's reiterated in the mark of the beast, which is Satan's copy of the mark of the Lord. God marked certain people so that they wouldn't be destroyed. There's actually several instances of that in the Old Testament, and that isn't necessarily. Is it a physical thing or is it? Is it an aura? I don't know.
And they've been debating about that forever.
Exactly. So that's my point. Is this could be something along those lines? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying it's not 100% sure that this is a stigmata. But anyway,
And
go ahead
what
with
I
your-
want to
With
say,
Paul's stigmata or just stigmata?
Well, I'm
like
saying this
stigmata or
verse
stigmata?
is not necessarily 100% proof that
No,
Paul had stigmata.
I don't have any proof. I'm just saying I tend
got
to
you,
believe it because of those.
but it's
those
convincing.
reasons.
I'm with you.
and Jeff, I would say I agree with that. During the time to have that would definitely convince a lot of people. But why 400 other people? What significance? And why
Good.
would you have that other than like, oh, I'm the best Christian Catholic in the world? That's where I get confused.
Yeah.
What purpose? That served a purpose right there for sure in the emphasis of Christianity. 100%.
Yeah.
But the rest, even modern day, what's the significance? I don't
Well,
understand.
I think Greg has probably got a hunch on this. I already have an answer, but I think Greg's got the same hunch. Why would it be increasing more now?
Yeah, and why just a certain group of people? What do those people that have it
Why
have in common?
Catholics?
Well, I'll tell you why Protestants don't get it.
Okay.
Because they don't want it. Simple as that. They don't want it. I mean, Protestantism has a really unique approach to Christianity that's different than Catholicism.
Yeah.
They have a better healing ministry in Protestantism than Catholics do. Catholics take something that was traditional in Judaism, which is dying to yourself. All right, some people take it to the extreme, but they are often full about fasting and suffering. So the reason why Catholics do it, and so I don't know why Protestants don't want to do it, but that is the reason why they don't have it happen. If you don't want it, you're not getting it. Because my understanding is they don't like it, but
Yeah.
they agreed for
But
it.
I thought
This is-
Pio, what's his name? Padre Pio.
He
I thought
hated it. He was embarrassed by it.
he
Yes.
didn't want him. So
But
that
this
sort of
is the
refutes what you're
this is
saying.
no this is the way it is. So I got to understand two words that go hand in hand. There's passion, which is where you feel so strongly for something that you are willing to die for it. Some people are passionate about their country.
There's evangelicals as well as Catholics who feel that way.
Yes, in fact, that were some of the other stigmatas. Are charismatics and Pentecostal have gotten stigmata as well. So I don't know if that's considered the same, if Protestantism would group that, but there have been some cases in the charismatic Christian movement and Pentecostal. But they're all right. So, but understand the reason for the stigmata is this, as I understand it. Now, I'm nobody's an expert on stigmata. When we die, we can get all the answers to these questions, hopefully. But it means this. So Jesus's passion was that he felt so strongly for humanity that he was willing to give his life for it. That's the term passion. Compassion means with that passion. So if you take the stigmata, it means you're with Jesus's passion. You're compassionate to him. So it doesn't mean that you want it, but it's the same thing as Peter being willing to take the cross upside down.
Sure.
He was willing to suffer in a worse way because he was with Jesus's passion. And so the passion itself is the conversion of people. Now, everything was done with Jesus, but certainly the stigmata is evidence of Jesus's passion in the world today, where it wouldn't be there otherwise. And not everyone is willing to accept that. So
let me throw in another difference about Catholics and Protestants. I didn't know this until, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, that a Catholic cross is called a rood or a crucifix, has Jesus on the cross. I mean, there's him there actually being crucified, whereas Protestants just have the cross without
Same
Jesus
thing with
on it.
Lutherans.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Lutherans are Protestants. My point is the emphasis on the Protestant side is that the risen Christ, and he's not there because he's risen. Whereas the Catholic emphasis is on the suffering and on the passion going on during the crucifixion. I'm not saying one is right and the other is wrong.
it's not exactly true. We have
Definitely.
both. We have
Okay.
both.
All right.
We have both. And I'll tell you the difference of the two. The crucifix, we go by Jesus' own words, where he said, there is no greater love than this, than to lie one's life down for their friends. That is his passion. That was the purpose of it. So that's the crucifix has that meaning for us, is showing the greatest love of all. Mm-hmm. And the other crosses is for other reasons of the resurrection and that. But with the crucifix, it's we're recognizing God's love. With the other one, God's resurrection, which the Protestants
And that your sins have been forgiven, and through Christ and through that crucifixion.
It all comes from
That's the
suffering.
only point of it.
So you get rid of the crucifix, you get rid of that love, suffering, compassion element, then you wouldn't understand the stigmata enough to have it. So what happens?
That was my point.
Yeah. It is definitely the
Not
crucifix. The Protestant that kind of that difference is largely why. But the simplest way to look at it is Protestants don't want it. They don't want to have it, and they don't want to recognize that it exists.
Well,
so
Protestants, I
in fact,
know,
they also sometimes believe it's demonic. So we can get into that too. But yeah, go ahead.
that definitely comes into mind. I mean,
Mhm.
I won't lie. That did cross my mind. There's something evil going on here. I'm not saying there is, but I certainly consider that.
There
But
was something evil going on with the crucifixion too.
there you go. And so I'm not trying to diss it. I'm trying to, understand both sides. But I will
Right.
say this, that most Protestants, when they pray, Lord, your will be done. Whatever that is, we want your will to be done. So if you
Hmm.
want me to have stigmata, then I want to have stigmata, but it doesn't even come up. We don't even know about it. We don't even think about it. And like I said, it's
Yeah.
just I think if a bunch of Protestants suddenly said, hey, stigmata is a thing, and I think that, Protestants are motivated by, we want to be able to reach as many of the lost people as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So if having stigmata would reach more people, then I want stigmata.
It
That's how I
definitely
feel.
it definitely does. That's what the point
And
of it
that's
is. That
that's
is the
so,
purpose.
but as again, it just wasn't even brought up as an option,
Well,
something
let's
to
look
even
at
pray
some
for.
pictures if we can, and then we can talk
Indeed.
more. I got
Okay.
lots of pictures and videos, so go ahead
Let's
and
go through that, and then
Go
I'd
ahead
like to
and
see
fill some time.
the most modern
Yeah.
stigmata
Well,
out
again,
there, like
I
in
just
today's age, that
all
has
right, we'll
been
start modern and go backwards then.
okay,
okay.
sure.
All right, you guys talk amongst yourselves really quick. Some
You
that
got a slideshow ready to go for us?
well,
Oh
it's
yeah,
kind of ready. I mean,
I'm
we
not
just
sure
picked.
if this is what's happening. I'm only seeing myself since I what I did was I changed my cameras and then changed it back. I had to reboot it. I don't know why, but I don't know if that's what is being seen. Was it just me all this time? I'm not sure. Anyway,
it's
go
No,
ahead.
it's toggling back
we
and
see
forth
it.
Okay.
as it should.
Don't worry about the technical stuff. Don't
All
worry.
right. I won't worry about it.
All right. So this is this is I don't know how to say his first name, but the
That's
last name is
Charles
pronounced.
Manson,
Yeah,
clearly.
it looks like it.
I'm kidding.
Well, that cross on his forehead is blood.
Yes.
That was the first thing that happened to him. And then the stigmata followed shortly after in the
Okay. So that
following days or
that never
weeks.
heals. That's
That one
one of
did.
those
That one
flowery
did.
smelling things.
No, on
So
his forehead, that one healed.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that
because he
was
did it himself. I'm kidding.
no, it's very possible. We can't rule that out, but it's very unlikely, and we're going to listen to them speak.
Okay.
But let's talk. He is currently last year, 2023. He has been taken by the Vatican out of the public spotlight to do some missionary work. I don't know what that means.
Can I say something about his forehead before we play it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you know, and again, I'm giving you a little bit of background. I grew up a Presbyterian. We never did Ash Wednesday. I don't know. We just didn't do it, but then now the church that I've been going to since I was an adult, we put ashes on your forehead, which I know that Catholics and Lutherans, have been doing this forever, but
Yeah.
I didn't grow up doing that. So, anyway, just for those,
What
there
what are
are
the words you
Protestants
guys?
out
What
there
are the
that don't
words you
even know
guys
what that
say?
symbol means, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
What
what are
is
the
the?
words you guys say,
I know what ours are,
Greg?
but
I don't know that there's any particular words.
They say you came from ashes, you were returned as
Yeah, yeah,
ashes.
yeah,
something like
it's
that.
from the
It's pretty
scripture.
done. I'm
Yeah,
like, whoa.
Yeah, from ashes you came, and ashes you will return.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
they said something like that.
All right.
What was said wasn't significant when I've done it, at least.
So yes, this mark on his head reminds you of the ashes at Ash
Yeah,
Wednesday. I get
100%.
I get it. Let's see what he has to say here a little
Let's
bit.
hear it.
Imam sada seminare po našoj biskupiji, to znači da to nisu male grupe ljudi od 50, 60, 100, nego ovako pune crkve. Što govorim? Što je danas bitno da ja govorim? Našto da danas dam naglasak? Održavao sam do sada nekoliko tih seminara. Govorili smo i o kontemplaciji, i o transcendenciji, i o meditaciji. Imam osjećaj da tim stvarima zapravo pucam ljudima iznad glava. Ono što ja osjećam da je potrebno, a to je iznova oživiti, probuditi važnost sakramenata u našoj crkvi. Govoriti o osnovnom pologu naše vjere. Govoriti o sotoni, o zlu. Govoriti i ukazivati na određene stvari o kojima se danas jako malo govori. Čak sam primijetio i ovo. Zapravo, nudeći meditaciju, govoreći o meditaciji ljudima koji konkretno ne žive svoj vjernički život, ja ih dovodim u opasnost. Danas vam se meditacija i duhovna nudi na svakom koraku. Postaje to drugim riječima jedan surogat koji sada nudi i katolička crkva. Kao da se mi želimo boriti nekako u korak sa ovim vremenom i ovakvim duhovnim krivim ponudama koje vladaju. Mi se ne trebamo boriti. Mi se ne trebamo dokazivati. Mi imamo osobu Isusa Krista, živu i prisutnu.
Yeah, so he's talking about things that the Catholics are doing and teaching wrong. As all Christians, we could be doing better. The focus
Started out
on
like Martin Luther.
it's pretty interesting stuff, except that he is completely dedicated to the church. All right, so
Real quick, I just wanted to, just for entertainment value, if you could pop
Okay.
that up. I want to see if the comments are in English, I'd like to just go through like 3 or 4 of them. If we could. Because
Okay,
sometimes
if I
you
could
can
find
glean
it
a lot
again.
of information. Some of them are wisecracks, but some people have pretty thoughtful comments.
let's go.
To
Let's go to
me-
something else. All right, let's go to something else because I won't be able to find that video again
Okay.
right now. All right, so
Next time.
all right, next video. The next video we'll look at the comments. All right, let's see. I got one here.
So
This
just to be clear, that
let's
guy that we
talk
just saw,
Yeah.
he has stigmata now. So he started off with the cross thing, and then he's got it stigmata. Or
it all came almost instantly, but within a matter of days.
And then it went away as
No, he has it on his wrists.
okay.
Interesting. There is some
I
debate
think
as
that
to
guy's
where
a
the nails
poser.
went, in the hand or in the wrist.
Right, we'll talk
Is-
about that. But he gets it on the wrist. Padre Pio had it on the palm. But again, the whole mark is symbolic, and in the language of Jesus, the hand extends from here to here, and so nothing is going to be a precise, exact marking of where Jesus had it because every hand is different anyway. And for early Christians, that's the hand. So
Is this the same dude with the hair dye? His dyed
this is
or
the same guy. His hair is
what I
not
thought.
dyed or changed. This is the same guy, same color hair.
Before.
Okay.
All right, let's share. This really is neat preaching, and let's just kind of go to see, and then we'll go to the comments after this one.
Okay, got
Smo
it.
sad poslavili, zahvaljivali Bogu. Obično
Sorry, he's saying, what was the last time we thanked God?
smiluj mi se Bože, kajem se Bože, oprosti, kukaju, cijeli život samo moljakaju, molim te Bože da ne molim te. Kad si ga zahvaljivo i slavio za ono što imaš? Moliš za nešto, kad počeš zahvaljivati? Što misliš? Da li kad dobiješ, to dijete mora ozdraviti da mu kažeš hvala? Ne mora, ne mora. Zamisli da je sad tu došao jedan bogati čovjek i da vam je svima u ruke dao ček od 1.000.000 kuna. Bi li trčao na banku da unovčiš taj ček, slemiš ga u kofer i onda trčao nazad čovjeku i rekao hvala? Ili bi automatski rekao hvala? Pa čujte, niste trebali, ali hvala vam, jel? 1.000.000 kuna je 1.000.000 kuna. Bi rekao hvala automatski, jel? Bi. Ali to ni novac, to je simbol novca, ček. Ček može biti i lažan. A to je čovjek, a čovjek je pokvarljiva roba. Pa ako toliko možeš vjerovati jednom simbolu novca i čovjeku da automatski kažeš hvala, koliko li više Bogu? Ali opet da stoji ono pitanje, kada onda treće hvala? Znači nešto se mora dogoditi. Što? Ljudi moji, kada tvoje srce nepobitno zna da je Bog na tijelu, da je Bog čuo, kad ga osjeti, kada zna da je Bog čuo, kada zna. Čudo nije neki fenomen koji ne bi, neka stvar, neki događaj koji ne bi slijedio prirodne zakone. To nije čudo u Božjem smislu riječi, ne. To se ljudi jako varaju. To može biti neki prirodni fenomen, što će znamo za 100-200 godina protumačiti. Sad ja počnem dizati u zrak. To nije nikako čudo. I u Columbia University, na seminaru parapsihologije, na nje profesor pokazivao, guruji u Indiji isto prekriženi, šamani, isto se dižu u zrak. Dokazano, snimali ih isto. Ma ne po duhu Božjem. O, vrag vam je jako lucidan, znate. Vrag vam sve more. Samo jednu stvar ne more. Bit ponizan, poslušan. Ko to ne more ljubit. Jer ljubit more samo ponizno srce. E, to je njegovo prokletstvo. Jel da to more pokajao bi...
Okay, I want to include that to show that he is speaking against the devil. He's speaking about miracles. He's even speaking against the miracle of his wounds. He's saying it may
Interesting.
be explained by some medical science in 100 years from now. He says that's not the real miracle. So it's very fascinating. It's a very unexpected preaching that he's even taking the importance off of the miracle of the wounds himself and saying
Mhm.
this is it's more important is what he when he speaks about money, he speaks the way to me very well, very similar to Jesus. His preachings. Is very parallel. Now let's go to me. So I
Now,
think
hang
his
on. So
preaching
he
is
has the
sound.
marks, but they're hidden because they're on his
They're on
wrists,
his wrists.
and we can't see them. Okay. Y-
There are some pictures you go look it up, but he has
Okay.
been
Something
validated.
else that interested me, and this is just an aside, but he talked about $1 million. He's not in America, so I thought it was interesting that he used dollars instead of euros. But anyway,
So, so he spoke a lot about America. In fact, John, you and I have a mutual friend back in Ohio. Won't mention his name. He was turned off by this guy because he said something they didn't like about America, but it was about our food. And the issue is a lot of people in his country were leaving Croatia to go to America. It's a big thing, It's like I can't wait to get some money. I go to America, and he's trying to discourage, saying you don't need to go to America. And he says I've been to America, even though same wine from the same vineyard somehow tastes different. So he's trying to discourage his people, but some people took offense to that. The fact that people take offense to his preaching is really interesting too. He's spoken to him about dollars. The reason is because he had a multi-international audience there. So
okay.
he was speaking with the bishops of that. All right, comments.
Most of them are not in English.
In Croatian,
You
just
can
the one.
translate them.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, we get the point. So
I don't see anyone saying anything
I
bad.
like the way he's prefacing it, saying that he's like, who cares if it's there or not? The miracle is Jesus himself. Blah blah blah. So he's not. So let's go to a different example. Really, let's not focus on this because we're talking about the stigmata. Is there one that has all 4 or 5?
He has all five. He has all five. He has on his hands, feet, and side. So that gentleman does.
Okay.
I think all of them do. I haven't heard of any cases where it's just the
And
hands.
and they all appeared at roughly the same time. All 5 of them just suddenly came all at once.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The Catholic religion puts a lot of emphasis on that. So if you have stigmata, you're going to be paid attention to. He could have been a priest and basically doing his priest stuff for a Catholic priest, but it elevates his voice by
Sure.
having stigmata. Is that
I
fair
would
to
think
say?
so.
Within the
except,
Catholic.
except that like usually when these things happen, the Catholic Church does the exact opposite and usually put them in hiding. And that's what
Interesting.
they just did last
Why
year.
do they do that?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
And they did that with him.
They did that with Padre Pio. Well, I think they did this also with the Fatima, the one survivor from Fatima. They sent her to, and the reason is because
Convent.
yeah, they sent her to a convent. They sent Saint Bernadette to convent, and after she had seen many things and proven miracles to the community. Once they have the major miracle, they're usually sent to a convent or somewhere in private contemplation for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not punishment. It's usually an honor, and I don't really know the reasons, so I can't really speak to it, but that is typically what happens. They're not put out in the streets as a sideshow. They're usually kind of tucked away. So it is convincing. It's not that they don't want it known. It's just they I really, all right. So if you believe in a good Vatican, you may get a different guess than if you believe in the bad Vatican. If it's a good Vatican, then it's okay. This guy is clearly touched by God. We need him to do something meaningful in the world, and maybe that's prayer or something else. If it's bad Vatican, then yes, they would want the signs of Jesus being real out there. So it depends on your interpretation. I'm
And
not
the
in the Vatican,
fact
so I
that
don't know.
the Catholic hierarchy hides these people tells me, observationalist, that they're doing that because they don't want their authority challenged. Meaning, he could come, the person with the stigmata could have some profound doctrine, right, that goes against the hierarchical nature of Catholicism.
That's a question I have.
Could be.
Has that ever
That's what I
happened,
think.
Jeff? As far as you know,
Yeah.
these 400 people who had stigmata, did they all fall right in line with what the church was teaching, or did any of them say the church is wrong and this is, I guess you could say St. Francis of Assisi he didn't really like try to put the church, replace the church like Martin Luther, but he was critical of the church.
I think all saints at some point in their life were critical about the church in one way or another. But it's not like the real, when you say church, they don't mean the real,
Sure, I
church that
get it.
Jesus set up.
I
They
get it,
mean
but
the
I mean the
corruption
Vatican
within the
structure
church. Yeah.
and the hierarchy. So
So
most
they,
of them were critical of the hierarchy.
yes. Now I wouldn't say
That's
most
your
of
answer
them.
right there, John.
I don't know if it's most of them, but a significant number of them. Okay,
And
so
you
I
think they
there's
would put special relevance and credence to the stigmata, saying, we better listen, because we better, maybe
well,
this is a miracle from higher up saying, change our ways. And they're
well,
like,
it is
no, we will
increasing. It
not.
does seem to be increasing, but again, it's not increasing in awareness. So it's not making the news. You really
Because
have
they
to
snuff
dig.
it out at the Catholic hierarchical level,
Well,
seems like.
they're not hiding. I mean, like Padre Pio gave mass till the very end of his life. So this guy, it's not like he's going in hiding. It's just I think he's being sent on missionary work, and that may be to like some islands in Africa or in the South Pacific. I don't know. So I don't know what his missionary work is going to be. But he's probably going to be preaching to people who have never seen a civilization or a camera and trying to speak.
Okay, I just
I'm
wanted to throw
guessing.
that out there. But
Yeah.
this dude here, he's got like the gauze around with the blood coming out.
All of them do have the gauze because it's constantly bleeding.
Okay,
And I
I
don't
wanna
know
hear
much
see.
about him. I don't know much about him. Let's just kind of
Well,
just.
let's see this dude and see the comments,
He's
because
from
this to
Poland.
me, this looks fake.
Okay. All right.
That's-
Maybe.
And I don't go ahead.
I'll explain what this is in a second. You'll see some of them touch the.
Yeah, touching the hem of his
I'll
garment.
tell you about that. Okay, so this is an ancient tradition where they would carry the communion through a crowd of people, and people would touch the cloth just like the women in the crowd with Jesus. So
And what country is this?
that was Poland.
Poland. Okay, you
All
said
right.
that.
But we do that in our church too, a couple times a year too. So, but in our church, I'm not sure why he was holding it. I think it's better what he was doing, holding it. But in America, all I've ever seen is they have it in a structure. I don't remember the name of it. It's a really strange name. But it's a structure and you don't touch it. And I'm like, well, why can't a priest touch the body of Christ he does every day in Mass? But maybe it's because it's outside of Mass, it's not in the ceremony, and that's the reason. And he can't even touch that structure that holds it. He has to have a cloth, a robe around it. And so it's a traditional thing. He's at a real church. That's a real parish. It wouldn't be likely that somebody who's a complete liar would be able to pull it off on a large number of
Yeah,
people.
I mean, you'd think that the people in the church would know.
Yeah, everyone in our church is suspicious of everyone. If somebody claimed they're a miracle, everyone would be suspicious of it. Once it was proven true, people would change.
Did I just freeze?
You did, yeah.
Oh,
Green.
Yeah, we're
Not
I
easy
don't know
to
what's
read.
going on.
Well, no, it has nothing to do with anything, Greg. It's a periodic connectivity issue from the server. Of,
All right, well, I'll fix it.
It's nothing to worry about.
It
But
has
it's only
nothing
ever
to do-
Greg's thing, though. That's the thing.
It's only mine. It's happened a lot in the last little while here.
But yeah, that looks creepy, and to me, it looks like the guy's he just wants to elevate his importance as a priest. That's what I mean. I could be totally wrong, but I think this is why a lot of people
because of
don't.
the ceremony they were doing, the parade, or because of
I literally
wounds?
think that
What did he
that
do?
because
That's what I'm missing.
okay. I literally think
Hmm.
because it's within the Catholics
Yeah.
believe in stigmata. He's a Catholic priest, so why not? I am devoted to Jesus more than anybody. Oh, I was blessed by the stigmata. Do you see? I think the guy's full of crap, and he just
He would be he would be a massive liar. I mean, people would catch on to it, though, don't you
people
think?
have. I mean, look at. I mean, I don't want to begrudge the point of how
I don't
they
know him, so
protected
I can't say.
pedophiles for years, and
Yeah.
and I think until they come down harshly to anybody throughout time that did that, but this could easily be pulled off. I could do
All
the
right, so
same thing.
you're currently leaning towards that the stigmata is a Catholic scam to convince people of Jesus.
No, individual priests
But the
are
church would
exploiting
have
it.
to be in on it because the church investigated it.
Did the church sanction this as a real
All of
stigmata
them,
with
all
that?
of them get investigated as soon as they start doing it.
This
If they
guy
don't,
too?
all of them do, or they would be kicked out of being a priest if they didn't allow it to be investigated. They have to because other than that, they're creating a scandal. So they all once these things start happening, they immediately send the Vatican. You will send someone
And
first, the
again,
bishop
they're
in the
not
area.
they're not immune to scandal, and they allowed
right.
scandal to
So here's-
perpetrate for centuries.
They do not want the
Not-
scandals, even especially that's the
With
that's
the
the thing. They do
pedophile,
not
yeah,
want
they absolutely
scandals.
did.
They do not want scandals with the
They
pedophiles.
covered it up for
That's what
years.
that means. They don't
They
want it.
absolutely did.
That means they don't want it, though. If they're covering it up, it means they don't want it out. Scandal means public, outcry.
Yeah,
They
which
don't want
became a
public
scandal.
open.
The fact that they hid it and they were trying to say,
John, I
No,
know
no, that's
personally
the biggest
about
issue.
friends being molested. I know very deeply about
I
this.
understood.
So
I-
I'll tell you the way the situation works. When you have something criminal happen, there's a big difference than when you have something miraculous happen, but they kind of follow the same process. So I'll tell you what that process is. So let's just say it's somebody reports a priest for doing something questionable, and this has happened in my adulthood and in my childhood. So I kind of seen it from both sides. One when I was involved in the church. So somebody gets, I don't know, let's say the priest hugs a kid wrong. They go to the priest. Not that priest, a different priest. They're higher up. If he's the pastor, they go to the bishop. Anyway, so then that bishop comes and they talk with them and they do it in confession. And if they don't confess it, it's complicated. This is why it's complicated. If they confess it, they're forgiven and then they're dealt with their penance. That may be removing them from that job. If they don't confess it and there's evidence of it, they're excommunicated. They're kicked out. So if they really confess it, they're really sorry, then they stay priests, and then they're going to be basically kept away from children the rest of their life. But they have confessed it. And so that is the Catholic belief, is that if you are sorry, you are forgiven. That's Christianity.
Understood,
Now-
but they clearly weren't taken away from kids, and they were allowed
There's
to
some messed up
perpetrate their evil
Yeah.
through 20, 30, 40 years.
All right, so we're talking about
It's been
saints.
absolute proven.
So we're talking about saints now. Now here's the difference. There's at least one saint we were talking how saints often are critical of the corruption in the Catholic Church. One particular saint, I'm drawing a blank on who it is, said that the road paved to hell is paved by the skulls of bishops. Okay, so that is a priest who's really, really, really angry with the corruption at the top. Okay, and I could look it up. I probably will next time we talk. So let's not confuse miracles, saints, and pedophiles, because they're
that's fair.
completely two different things. Now, the process when there is a miracle is kind of similar. So if there is a miracle that happens, whatever, let's just say, David was healed in church and he started walking around, okay? The first thing it would be is the priest would investigate it and make sure. Then he would contact the bishop or the nearest person to him, because the priests don't report to the Vatican. They report to one person, that's the local bishop. That's why it sucks if you get a bad one. So there's no way around it really, except maybe the archbishop. But the archbishop usually appointed the bishop, not always. So then it goes up the hierarchy, and this is what some people have a problem with, but I think it's a very nice hierarchy because at the top is Jesus. Then it goes to the Vatican. The Vatican sends out some investigative team, and they usually are pretty nasty to the person with the miracle. That's what I have heard. They're pretty nasty, worse than the people that are non-Christians come and investigate it. In fact,
So they're going in as skeptics from the
Worse.
get, and they want to be convinced.
yeah, they're
Okay.
they go in with. I mean, it depends on the people, but if you read the a really good movie. Well, like there's sometimes the bishops don't. Maybe it's a bad bishop. I don't know. Or maybe it's a bad miracle. Maybe it's really, but there are times where this gets hung up with the bishop. The bishop says, no, it's not true. Often this happens. In fact, that has happened with Medjugorje, which has left a lot of Catholics, kind of go question the whole thing. I personally question it very much. The miracles at Medjugorje. I just not convinced. I don't believe it, and I don't need to believe it. The bishop himself didn't believe it. He went and investigated and doesn't believe it. But thousands and thousands of people are flocking there. Stigmata would be a miracle. It's easy to test. You bring in some doctors, and they probably would be Catholic doctors, but they're doctors. They're real, physicians, and that know and are educated. And they also, like that guy was saying, we don't have anything to prove. And the Catholic Church has always had that. We don't have to follow the laws of the land because those are corruptible. We only follow the laws of Jesus and what's given in the Bible. So they have no authority in their mind. They have no authority above them. So they don't need to prove anything to anyone. But once it's proven within the church, then they sign off and say, yes, you can go, I don't know, what do they call it? A pilgrimage to this priest's parish, whatever, and treat it as a religious
So they
thing.
consider all stigmatas, once it's proven within their validation within the Catholic Church, as a quote unquote miracle.
No, but they don't prove it as a miracle. They prove it has no natural origin.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
You
it.
can't prove
Okay.
a miracle. It's
Right.
not proving it negative.
No,
I don't
they
know.
only prove that there is
Or
no
consider it
natural
to be.
explanation for this. That's the only thing they prove.
Okay.
So, and they say at that point, we acknowledge that you can treat it if you believe it is a miracle. It's a matter of personal faith too. So you can go if you really believe that this is a thing. We don't see any sign of him hoaxing. They get an intense psychological examination.
Sure.
So they don't mess around because they don't want the questions that are being raised to have any standing. They rule them out first, and they get on these things fast. So they're going to rule them out fast, and they have some of it. They, like I said, Medjugorje, it's been around since my whole life, and they still haven't said it's valid. They're like, no, we're not saying it.
Interesting.
So
Can
not
I
all
throw in my
miracles are
opinion,
proof.
Jeff?
Yeah, please. I'd rather you guys talk about it.
So I'm a little less skeptical than John. I actually think miracles. I don't have a problem with miracles happening. I think it's cool that
Well,
they do.
I didn't say miracles. I said
Well,
just
no, I'm
stigmata.
just saying
That's it.
I'm willing to accept that these things are happening. I'm still wondering, again, that's my biggest question, honestly, is why is it only Catholics? But you've
relevance,
answered that.
yeah.
Because
and I get
they
that.
don't. Nobody else wants it.
I get it. I get that. And that would include, for example, like Eastern Orthodox. They don't want it either. They never get, there's no Eastern Orthodox with stigmata.
I haven't seen any cases of it. No.
Anyway, so where I'm coming from is not so much can miracles happen. So I'm 100% miracles can happen. I mean, the whole Red Sea
And I
thing and
didn't
all the
say-
stuff preceding that all happened. And yet those people were still doubting, and that's why they had to wait for 40 years. So miracles in and of themselves don't always accomplish the purpose. The primary
don't.
purpose of a miracle is to gain credibility. Like Jesus, because he healed all these people, it gave him a ton of credibility. People believed him when he said the things that he said.
But he also said those weren't the most important things of what he was doing either.
Right, but I'm saying the miracles, that was to give him credibility. That's
Right.
why.
That's all. Evidence of God's.
And that's what
chosen them for
miracles are
something.
for today too. If you're in a position where a miraculous event is going to convince a lot of people. You hear about this like in some remote village where somebody performs a miracle healing and then all of a sudden the whole village becomes, gets converted, and I hear stories about
Yeah,
that.
that
I
happens
don't,
often.
I know it happens a lot, but we never, here in the US, we never see it because we're all such doubting Thomases.
Well,
So,
I like the John is questioning. I certainly
well,
I want that, and I encourage it. I mean,
me
as long
too.
as it's
I'm,
genuine. I
I'm
don't want you to do it
skeptical.
just because you want to take devil advocates. If you really don't believe it, I like that, and I want to discuss it.
And
Yeah,
I'm not finding
and
fault with
Greg,
that.
about a miracle in a village where they can do trickery, right?
Sure, it
And
could
in the
happen.
50s, they had evangelicals that had come out and had fake people with fake
Yeah,
elements
well,
that they were.
that still goes on.
That's
Sure.
that still goes on. Um,
But I know people who do perform
Yes, there
miraculous
are some
healing.
real healing ministries
And
out
I
there. Yeah.
believe it's totally 100%. It happens, and it's not, it's evangelicals that are doing that. They're not doing stigmata. But again, what is the purpose? Is the purpose is to get healed? Yeah, but if that was the only purpose, then Jesus would have healed everybody, and he
Everyone,
didn't heal
exactly.
everybody.
And he would heal my
So
son. My son's not healed. There's a lot
the
of different people
primary
that aren't
purpose is
healed for
not
no matter
the
what.
healing. The
Mhm.
primary purpose is getting people to believe. That's the primary purpose of all miracles.
And
So
I think
if
he has a different purpose for each person too. Like, I mean,
yeah,
there is
we're
some.
all in a different position. So that's what my point in saying all this is, that's my question is how would God benefit from having this guy have stigmata? That's the question I want to
that's
ask.
the question I would like to.
And
I think you
if
asked that
there's
last
nothing
time, John.
gained by it,
So,
then did God do it? God never does things for no reason.
all right. So let's to get to why God, how this happens, how everything involved. We got to go to Saint Francis of Assisi, which is the first documented, if you don't count Saint
Let's
Paul.
do that.
But we have to touch on somebody else who is the most beloved in the Catholic faith, Stigmata, and he just passed away, was Padre Pio. And no one questioned, even the atheists around him questioned, because he's just so down to earth, or was, and he was very humble and shy and well of everyone. And this is his last mass. I will show you how he has his hands. He could barely walk at the time and died. I think.
What time is this? It's like
I think
1960
60s. 60 is color, so
Okay, yeah.
late
Okay.
60s.
late
Okay,
60s. Okay.
here we go. This pen. You see his hands are covered up. He had it on his hands. Just want to show that clip. Now, I want to talk about Padre Pio because it brings up something we're going to talk about. Is this demonic or of God or a cross between the two? All right, so again, devil had its part in Jesus' crucifixion. So, I mean, so did God. He knew it was going to happen, but I don't believe God killed his own son, but he certainly allowed it for a reason.
Fair.
So we believe that there was definitely the devil's influence in that. And so it's not unheard of or unreasonable to think that the devil's influence is in these wounds, particularly of who gives them. So starting with St. Francis of Assisi, it was a seraphim angel, which is what the devil, St. Lucifer, was too, traditionally.
Where are we getting this from? That
St. Francis of
seraphim that did it?
Assisi, his accounts, he was, I
That's
don't know
what
what
he
year
said.
he was. So what he saw
1200s.
was a seraphim angel carrying a crucifix appeared to him, and then and so it was
Had them in their hands?
this angel that inflicted the wounds on him.
Interesting.
So,
So now
yeah.
the other cases of these marks,
Mhm.
was it always like somebody came to them and did it, or did it just happen overnight? They woke up one morning and all of a sudden they were there, or which was it? Is it different in every case?
I think it's fairly similar in every case in that they weren't born with it. They already had made a devotion to God. They were already living a religious life. It was some point after that. So, for instance,
And some being came to them and
sometimes
those marks in.
not always they've seen it. Like for instance, Padre Pio, he was thrown around his room at night by the devil. So very much tormented by the devil. and that people would come but then they'd come in the room and he'd say, yeah, I cursed at my guardian angel for not taking care of me and stuff like that. He would joke about it. There was another saint. He had said as a joke, the devil came to him so often that one day he woke up in the middle of the night and he looked over and the devil's in his bed with him. And he said, "Oh, it's you. I thought there was an earthquake." And he turned over and went back to sleep. He makes jokes because these attacks by the devil were so common and so often. So people often think that when a person's possessed, and obviously they may have done something to do that, but not possessed. Possessed is different. They're not possessed. They're oppressed or tormented by the devil. Is usually that's anyone who has ever seen the reality of God. Well, not seen God, but the reality of God, are usually then shortly after visited by the devil and then tormented almost always the rest of their life.
I have a question for you, Jeff,
Yes.
as far as your opinion. My understanding of Satan, the devil, the guy, is that he's not omnipotent or omniscient. He
Right.
can only be in one place at a time. So therefore, it wouldn't, if that were true, then we can't have this guy visiting everybody. I mean, it's just not possible. Whereas he could have his minions, could be going all over the place.
Okay, so yeah,
that's
so
what I just wonder what your take on that is.
So this is where it gets complicated because a lot of what people, Catholics, let's just say, have learned about the devil and angels, believe it or not, comes from possessions. Now, the devils are not trustworthy, but what all exorcists say is at the very, very end, when a person is about to be freed, the priest has that bad spirit by a very short leash and can tell them to do anything it wants. It gets into that point because at the very end, they're going to say, "Get out." And it's not them that does it, but it's in the name of Jesus Christ. Now, you'll often see these videos of people, maybe they're priests, maybe they're, whatever, cast out spirits, and that's good. But as any of these exorcists say, that's good for about 5 minutes. The moment the devil wants to come back, if a person doesn't change their life, they're coming back. And so there's 4 different types of this sort of behavior. And I'm not expert on it, but I've studied. So, and I'm not going to, but possession is a very different thing than oppression. So Jesus was oppressed by the devil. He was harassed and eventually killed by his influence. But the information they get about the devil is often in those last stages of exorcism where they demand that they explain to them certain things. And one of them, and they said these spirits are kind of bad lying kids. They're not very good liars once you know they're lying because they're pretty common. But one of them,
mainstream media.
Yeah, you kind of see it coming. Once you experience with it, you kind of see where it's going from the beginning. The thing is the devil is that this is not scriptural and it's not in the catechism, but we can believe this, is that God split the personalities of the devil when he betrayed him as a consequence as an opposite to the Trinity. So there's Lucifer, who's would be similar to Jesus, because that was his job, is to follow Jesus, to light the way of Christ originally, and he was a seraph, an angel. Then there's Satan. He is a different. He's kind of like the head, kind of like the father. And then there's Beelzebub, who's kind of coming. So he split his personality, and so and then in fact even some Protestants, kids who claim to have died and seen him, said that when they've seen the devil, it's like 3 heads telling 3 different lies all at the same time. So it's kind of the same way the Catholics have believed it. There's that opposite of a Trinity. And so when speaking of Lucifer, and Jesus talked about this too, when he said, "How can Beelzebub cast out Beelzebub?" He was talking about this. All right. So anyway, so that's what they said that there's in the Bible, and I think some of the non-canonical books, which you've read some of them. I don't remember which one it was, but there was just legions upon legions upon legions of angels that were cast down. So all of those are bad spirits that can at any time possess somebody for one reason or another, or torment or tempt. So it's not that Satan himself
Right.
is
Okay.
is
So a
necessarily
devil, not the
a
devil.
devil. It could be
Okay,
like
fair.
legion. It could be there's a number of them, and
Sure.
some of the, so when the
That makes
exorcist
sense.
casts them out at the end, he makes them. That was the thing, is he has to get them to tell their name, and their name is usually a task, because they say that all angels have their whole soul being is a task. And so Lucifer, his task was to light the way of Christ, and he refused to do it. So therefore, that's kind of the way I understand it. So no, there is not one
So
devil
Michael,
going
is
around.
Michael a task? I'm thinking of Michael the archangel.
Yes.
Is that a
So
task? What does Michael mean? I don't know. Or
he who is
Gabriel
like
is
God.
another.
Michael means it's he who's like the Lord, or something like that. I
Yeah.
think
So is
exactly.
that doesn't sound like a task, but
No, but his task is he is the one that's going to cast the devil into hell in the final days.
okay.
He is the one that locks him up.
Okay.
So anyway, so the point is, right before we get off a little, kind of. All right,
Sorry.
so no, it's okay. When they have this, there's usually a seraphim that does it, or because that's probably a reflection of what happened. It was a seraphim that did it to Jesus,
Sure.
and so that is typically.
Well, you don't think it was the Satan that
I don't believe
I've always
so.
thought it was Satan, the number one guy, that was Lucifer himself, that was the one who tempted Christ.
Yeah, well, Lucifer, we believe that Lucifer was a seraphim.
Okay, but he
That's
was
when he
like the
fasted
head
for
guy.
40 days, right? Where he came back and said he was tempted by the devil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was tempted by devil, and
But that was in isolation where he deprived himself of food and water and everything else.
Right.
Correct?
yeah, it was right before his ministry, and the only way to know this is because this is what he told his apostles, because no one else was there. So he must have just shared this with the apostles, this story. And I think it was a story basically to say, I too was tempted, so don't expect to go through life without temptation.
Right.
And then he probably gave his story of his time in the desert right before he started his ministry.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I just want to clarify, Jeff, that I'm making a distinction between the devil and a devil. The devil, I believe, there is one individual, Lucifer, who was the one who actually tempted Christ, and a devil could be all these other millions of other guys.
yeah, so
One of whom could
yeah.
who could attack all these priests.
We believe that we believe that too. So, but like I said, when you're talking Beelzebub, Lucifer, and Satan, they're
Then
all
you're talking
one
about the
with
devil.
3 different personalities. Yeah, we're talking about
Right.
like the Father,
That's
Son,
the
and Holy
trinity of the devilness.
something. But it was a
Just
punishment.
lots of names.
But it was a punishment. Is there now? So yeah. So it's not that. All right. So my understanding of the stigmata is that, and comes from to a lot of what we call saints. I don't think saint is a good word, because saint means somebody
I
who's
don't
in
like
heaven.
it either.
Saint is somebody who's in heaven. That's all. That's what a saint is.
Well, no, that's not true, Jeff.
In our belief,
Paul,
that is.
Paul
There are no
says
saints
this is
on
the
earth.
message to the saints. He addresses many of his epistles end that way. The saints implies those who
All
are
right,
believers.
let's
in
go
Christ.
dig into it. Hold on.
Sorry,
Keep
that's
talking. Hold on.
Apostle?
clear.
Did you say apostles? You say epistles. Epistle is just a
That's
different.
my understanding of the word saints. So that's why I differ, I guess, with Catholic theology, which says, the saints are
And
somebody
this is
special.
about stigmata, which is
Right, but I
geared towards the
think all
Catholics.
believers
Let's not
in
get
Christ
into
are
a
saints.
Protestant Catholic debate.
Well, you can't ignore it, and I'm not afraid to discuss it, because I don't have a problem with Protestants, even when they are bashing me. I love all our.
I'm not bashing
just
you.
a
I'm just
difference
saying
of
I
opinion.
didn't say you did, but I have been there before with other people. So yeah,
it's okay. So I got several verses that I
yeah, I
pulled
do
up.
too. I do. Philippians, or Corinthians,
1 Corinthians
Ephesians,
1 and 1 Corinthians 6.
All right, let's go. Let's do one at a time. Let's just do one. All right, what are we at?
I don't know which ones.
Corinthians 1.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Corinthians 1
Unto the
verse
church
2.
which is at Corinth, to them that are sanctified in Christ Jesus, called to be saints. I guess that means they're not saints yet. Okay, with all that in every place, upon the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, both theirs and ours.
All right.
1 Corinthians.
Well,
Go ahead.
we're only staying there.
Okay.
That I'm going to find the actual word in my translation that says holy.
Yeah, we
people.
could find the
holy
original
people.
Greek.
What?
Okay.
In Colossians, hold on.
Yeah, well, I got Blue Letter Bible here. I can look it up.
Yeah, find the Greek word for.
Hang on.
I got
I'll
holy
get it.
people.
Okay, saints. Let's do here. Saints is the word hagios. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but we can look now. I can take that word and look up for all the instances of that in Strong's.
Yeah, go ahead.
That word appears a number of
It's
times.
not hagios. I got hagios. It's not the same meaning. It doesn't
Okay,
say
but
saints.
that's not the word you got?
I got hagios. It
Yeah.
means holy ones or set apart ones.
Yes.
That isn't the same thing. We mean saints as somebody who is in heaven.
I see. Okay. Well,
Not a person set apart, chosen by
that's
God on
that's a
earth.
King James.
We believe that saints is
The vote-
somebody who's already in
Back
heaven.
to the stigmata.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of hard to talk about stigmata without talking about saints because that's
But
kind of what we're talking.
everyone with that stigmata is a saint. What's the relevance?
Well, again, that's the relevance is: are they saints because they have it? If they're not in heaven, so they
But
can't
are
be
all
saints.
like everybody that had stigmata that had been validated by the Catholic Church are saints? No.
That's a good question. Let me look that up. That I don't know. Hold on.
I was looking up the word hagios. It's often refers to as the holy ones.
Yeah.
Like the Holy Ghost or the hagios. Interesting. Or the devil took him up to the holy city. That's the hagios city.
Yeah.
So it
means
can
holy.
be an adjective in that
Yeah.
way.
All right, John's question was good. Have all the hold on a second.
Validated stigmatas.
What was the question? Have they all what?
Are they all saints? Because I'm just
Oh.
we're going on tangents here that has nothing to do with,
I'm not sure
in
if
my
they've all
opinion,
been,
the stigma.
because a lot of
Well,
times
let's
they're not.
let them
John,
assault
I
saints
disagree with
until after they're dead.
with that. That's why I'm keep going. I don't think it is anything separate. Stigmata has to do
Well,
with
let's
the
see.
saints.
Let's see.
Yeah, so
'Cause,
it's
people are tuning in to see specifically about stigmata, not a debate between Catholic and Protestant.
no, we're talking about the word saint.
Oh.
Okay, there are some stigmatics that have not been canonized or are pending canonization. So you got to understand again the meaning of the word saint to understand what that means. So a saint means, okay, so first of all, everyone's in heaven. If your friends and family who have passed on are in heaven, they are saints by definition in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
But saint, the word what we're talking about is recognized, canonized means we're saying he's a saint because this miracle, this thing's happened, this thing's happened, this thing's happened, this person was healed. That's
And to me,
A recognition
there's
by
an
the church
incentive for
Right.
priests to have stigmata
What would it be?
because of the sainthood. The sainthood, obviously.
But what would they get out of being
not just-
called a saint?
I don't.
after they
There's
die.
Remembered.
In my opinion, priests are no different from anyone else. They don't have
Okay.
any other than
Well,
theology.
that goes against scripture a little bit, though.
You're giving and to me the way I agree.
We could drop
you're giving-
scripture and go on that. Okay, that's fine.
You're basically giving prevalence to God and His children.
Mm-hmm.
Priests get higher prevalence, and I categorically disagree with that 100%.
Well, then it goes against the Jewish. But it
well,
goes against
well-
Judaism then, and that's where the Christianity came from. It goes
Well,
with
okay,
Jesus.
I'm
Jesus was
still
ordained
on
a priest, the high priest of all
You
time in
don't
the order of
see.
Melchizedek.
Okay, if you're a priest
Mm-hmm.
and your mind isn't correct, whatever, you're
Which
ill.
has happened because they're also
and-
humans.
Of course, because they're humans, like everyone else. There's no
Right.
favoritism.
But Jesus was
God
human
died
too.
understood, but He died on the cross to give rid of everybody's sins, including priests who sin. No one's immune to sin except for Jesus. Period. Full
Okay.
stop. Right. So what I'm
I don't
saying
agree
about
with
the
that, but go
stigmata,
on.
okay,
But I understand that
that's-
most people agree with that, so that's okay.
Understood. But the stigmata for a priest is saint. You're going to be saint within the Catholic Church. You're going to be a patron saint or whatever.
Not
That's what
necessarily.
you just said.
No, I just said we have some that haven't been validated.
Because they're pending validation.
All right, well, let's read it before I'll
Okay.
give you. I want you to have the first response.
All
after I
I'm
read
saying
it.
is
Let's
that
just
is
read
an
it.
incentive for somebody to do it. That's all.
Okay, there
A
definitely
human incentive.
There definitely
Yeah.
could be a human, prideful, sinful reason for doing this.
Exactly.
Let's investigate that.
Let's
talk first of those who have not become saints. Some of them have: Padre Pio, Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Catherine of Siena. not canonized, blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. Blessed means that, she's had a couple miracles, but it hasn't been proven enough for the church's satisfaction. But blessed means it's likely one day to happen. And she lived in the 1800s. All right, so there was another one more recent, died in 1981, a French mystic who reportedly bore the stigmata and lived on only the Eucharist for decades. She's declared venerable in 2014, but not yet beatified and canonized. And that's usually because no miracles have followed after she passed away. There's Therese Neumann, 1898 to 1962, German mystic who experienced the stigmata and other mystical phenomena. She has not been canonized or beatified. Some stigmatics have not been officially recognized or validated by the Catholic Church. This may be due to lack of sufficient evidence, controversy surrounding their claims, which you bring up, the Church's cautious approach to extraordinary phenomena. Examples include individuals who lived in obscurity or those whose experiences were dismissed as psychological or fraudulent. Okay, so are there some fraud? Yes. The Church already acknowledges it. Are some of these people crazy? Yes. But are some of them valid? You say no.
Maybe they are. Let me step back.
Okay.
But being that it's only within the realm of Catholic followers and Catholic thing, would say to me,
it's not all. I told you there's other cases. There's the Pentecostal and then there's charismatic. They're not Catholic and they've had it too. So go on.
And are they saints? Or
no, because the Catholic Church doesn't recognize them as saints. It doesn't mean they're not in heaven, though.
Okay.
That's why we're going over the word saint.
I just think it's an elitist type thing to make Catholics seem to be more connected to God. That's and I can see how people
that is the common Protestant belief. I get it. This is also the reason why Protestants aren't getting stigmata. They don't believe it. They don't want to believe it. So they're not going to have it. God won't will that on them against their will. But Catholics do believe it, and therefore they do sometimes get it. So and the question is, why do only Catholics get it? So you're debating why Catholics don't get it by your own argument. If Catholics don't get it, why? Because Protestants don't believe it. They don't want it. If you wanted it and believed it, you would get it. But you don't. Therefore,
there's been medical examples of wounds appearing to have nothing to do with stigmata.
But they've already ruled out the medical explanations and natural phenomena.
Understood, and we covered that.
So it would be hard to argue that these doctors weren't experts in their field because they chose those as experts in the field. So if they then, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of messed up doctors. So again, there are some that are frauds, there are some that are crazy, and there's some that are legit.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a large number of people. Not a significant. I mean, these people are alive. If you wanted to, you could go to their parish right now, get on a plane, and go sit in mass and watch and check.
It's fascinating, and just because
they're available for you,
and just because I can't conceptualize it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
That's all.
I'm just voicing my skepticism.
Yeah. It's not something like that happened thousands of years ago, which we could sit there and debate, and you don't believe, and I can't prove it. These people are alive right now.
That's why I wanted to see the modern example.
There's a lot of them. There's a girl, every time she takes communion, and this happened since she was a kid, every time she takes communion, it turns to flesh and blood. Real flesh and blood. Every single mass. And it's there. Somebody can go visit her in her parish. People do all the time. Now, does she go in there and secretly put flesh and blood in her mouth before she goes to communion? Don't you think people will be sitting there watching her as she goes up to communion to see if it's dripping out? So there are miracles out there. It's people don't believe them because they don't want to believe them.
And some of them probably are not as conceptual and blatant.
Yeah, some are
as like black and white.
Some are hard to get your head around as to why, but I can tell you that the concept of stigmata, I believe, goes back to St. Paul. It is there.
I believe
help to convince Christians, and that's the other thing too. It is almost genuinely always a message to other Catholics. The stigmata is, it is, or to other Christians. It's like, hey, this is a man of God. That's all the message is. It's not to to convert people to Christianity. If you want to
That's
convert
my
people,
point I made a while ago.
yeah, exactly.
If God, if it's a real miracle, God has to benefit somehow by
Yeah.
the miracle happening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for indulging my skepticism.
I
But
don't mind skepticism. I think,
but the Paul Saul thing, it makes absolute sense to me.
yeah.
But the
So,
rest is like,
but then
just
again,
because I don't
there.
understand it doesn't mean it's not occurring.
but the funny
would
thing
like-
is no Christian religion in the world subscribes to what you just agreed to with me with St. Paul. Nobody says it. You know, it's. I mean, there are some people
Well,
that
he
suspect
literally
it.
said it, and it's
they-
the interpretation of what
Yeah,
he said.
I know, but
that's-
there's out of the 20,000 or 70,000 different Christian denominations, there's, to my understanding, there's not one that says that's what he meant here.
You mean outside of Catholicism?
Catholicism doesn't believe it either.
Oh, doesn't believe that the marks that
No,
Paul's talking about are
no,
stigmata?
No.
Oh, that's just Jeff Cook thinking.
Yes. And a few
Well,
other people.
to me,
I've
it makes
heard it.
sense.
I've heard
I didn't
it
know that. I
before.
thought that was a Catholic teaching.
No,
Okay.
no, the Catholics do not
Yeah.
believe
Oh,
this.
okay. All right. Well,
yeah, he needs to make a disclaimer that he doesn't
okay.
speak on the behalf
Well, I'm-
of the
I'm
I said,
Catholic
that, I said that in the very
Honestly,
beginning. I said that in the
I
very
can't-
beginning. Right.
You know,
The
I'm not
Catholic Church
100%.
does not teach this, does not subscribe to it. They don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But they don't teach
It's
it.
not
It's
official doctrine. I
I,
thought you were
don't,
saying
I never
it
even
was.
been taught it. I read it in a book somewhere that somebody speculated that some have speculated that maybe the stigmata that
It
St.
says
Paul
the
had.
marks of
Yeah.
Jesus.
It
He
definitely
says
makes
it.
you think.
I know, and if you think of the logic, how can he mean anything other than that? If you think, oh well, he was whipped. Well, yeah, he was whipped,
gotcha.
but that's not a comparison to Jesus.
get
And
you.
why would we say that's branding? I mean, maybe we're a legit prisoner and we're whipped as a prisoner. It means nothing to be whipped in those days. So
Yeah, I could see both interpretations being believable.
yeah, I'm fine with either. It's just I tend to believe he really did have the stigmata, but that's only because I believe in the stigmata in the first place. I believe it is a real miracle
Yeah.
of God. So therefore, it's very easy for me to say, well, then somebody else should have had it. Is there any reference in the Bible? Sure enough, there's one that looks pretty much like it. So if it is scriptural, that's the thing, and then it kind of sets the precedence for other people in modern times and throughout history also having it too, because why not? Why would it only happen? Most miracles that happen in the Bible have also happened since, with the exception of the resurrection. So many other healing miracles and all sorts of miracles happened throughout history. Why would they have stopped in the Bible? So we don't believe they did. So if that was a real stigmata, then we should be open, in my opinion, to stigmata being a very real miracle going on throughout the ages.
I
And
could
do
see
believe
that
it.
for sure.
I do believe it is.
Hey, Jeff, is
Yeah.
it okay? Can I return to what we were talking about 15 minutes ago? Because I did some,
You
while
can
you guys
return,
were
yeah,
talking.
of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't remember what it
This-
was, but
Well, no, it's okay. To me, this is a big deal. And I know John doesn't want to go here, but
he might.
well,
That's
anyway, but bottom line is you were saying, making the claim that Catholics believe that if you're dead, if you're in heaven, then you're a saint. But if you're on earth, you're not a saint yet. That's what you're claiming. Is that right?
Look, there are Catholics who will disagree with me, but
Okay.
a saint essentially means, all right. So here, you gotta understand this. Prayer has multiple meanings in the Catholic religion, and saint could as well. So a lot of times Catholics will say, "Oh, she's a saint," he's
Yeah, I
he's
know.
a saint.
And
All right,
I always
but-
cringe when I hear that.
I do too. So
It's not the right-
because usually when you find out, these are some of the worst people too. What they say. All right,
He's
anyway.
like that person's special, better than everybody else.
Yeah.
somehow.
Well, it's just a
I don't like
compliment,
that.
though.
I know.
A little girl or boy's an angel. It's like, well, then you raise them. No. So a saint, though, in my mind, and it's what I read is basically, it's somebody who is in heaven. That's it.
Okay.
Now there's canonized saints. That is, the church recognizes them because they have miracles
Right.
come
Which
back.
to an evangelical means nothing, just to be clear.
What's that?
We don't care what the Vatican thinks about anybody, honestly.
That's fine. That's
just-
fine.
just
But- so I'm
so
just
you
saying.
know.
So there are. So, but, all right. So the benefit to having All right, so I don't know. Do you not believe in miracles?
Well, no.
I'm not sure.
What I'm harping on is
Yeah,
the definition of the word saint. That's
it's somebody
all I'm
who's in
trying to
heaven.
establish.
Somebody who
What I
is in
want to
heaven.
establish is that the saints are the believers here on earth, and I found about 20 verses that confirm that, and that's what I wanted to share.
Yes, I've heard all of these. I've read them. I've looked over it, and it doesn't
Okay.
change the definition.
So that's the
These,
difference between Catholicism and
Okay. Well, no, I don't
and
know if that's a Catholic teaching or if that's just
well,
culture.
give me what. Let's do. I know all of these. I've been over this so many times, and I love
Okay.
it. But so
Okay.
I need to go verse by verse. Give me the particular one you're in question of.
Well, I'm looking at several verses
Just give
in
me one.
Acts.
One.
There's not one that's really better than all the rest of them, but
You're
for
gonna have
just
to
pick
pick
example,
one.
Acts 9:32 says, and it came to pass as Peter passed through all
Slow
the
down.
quarters,
Acts 9 what?
9:32.
Okay.
Peter passed through all the quarters. He came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydda. Now, how could you dwell at Lydda if you're not here on earth? So it's clear that he's talking
Hold on.
about people that are here on earth. And it's the same word, hagios, means the saints or the holy ones, can also be used as a verb. But that's just one of several verses that I don't know how you could interpret it to mean that the word saint, at least the word that's used there, could mean anything other than people that are here on earth
Okay.
that believe in Jesus.
I haven't
that
found
believe in Jesus. Exactly. That's what he
Okay.
meant by saints.
Acts 9:32.
9:32. And
What
again,
is
there's
the line?
many other
Read it.
examples.
Read it for me. Because I don't
Okay, I'm
see it.
reading, I don't know if this is King James, but it says, and it came to pass as Peter passed through all the quarters, he came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydda. Meaning, whoever these saints are, they're dwelling at Lydda.
No, yeah.
Therefore, dwell at
So
Lydda if you're not on the
so
earth.
that would be in the like I said, that would be like referring to them as good people or holy people.
Yeah, well, no, it would be referring to those as the saved people. That's what it definitely refers to. Saints is they're not necessarily good or bad. They're people who are saved.
Yeah. All right. Hold on. For some reason. All right. Hold that thought. All right. What is it? Give me a second.
Okay.
I can't answer your question without actually having the actual thing in
Understood.
context.
That's fine.
All right. Now, are you using the New International Version, King James?
I don't care what version you use. Read
Perfect.
your,
Okay.
it
That's fine.
doesn't
Hold on.
matter.
I
I think
don't.
the meaning is going to be clear no matter what version we use.
New International Version.
Okay.
You ever heard this one?
Of course. Yeah.
As Peter traveled about the country, he went to visit the Lord's people who lived in Lydda.
yeah.
It doesn't
Okay.
say saints
The
at all.
Lord's people. Okay. That's the same word as saints. Hagios. It's the
All right,
same word.
so you're not proving it to me, and we won't. I've been
okay,
through.
look at the-
I
look at
don't
the
believe
Greek
that it's-
word
Lord's
of the
people
Lord.
is not the same thing as
And
the saints.
you're going to have
But it's the same word
difference
in
of
Greek.
opinions.
It just
That's
means-
why
No,
there's
no, it's not
Catholics
an
and
opinion. It's
Protestants.
the same
Right,
word, hagios,
exactly.
in Greek.
Greg, what you're doing, John made a good point. What you're trying to do is prove that I have your definition of the word saint.
Well, no,
And I
no. What
don't.
I'm trying to say is
I
that
have a different
hagios, the word
definition of the word.
hagios, which is translated as saints in a lot
All
of
right, I'll go to the
translations,
Greek.
is used the same way. That's and
Well,
maybe
then why don't the New International Version? I don't even know if this is Protestant or Catholic. Why don't they
Well,
have?
go
why don't
to
And
they
the
I would
have-
say that even
We're
religious scholars would probably have a difference of opinion that spent their whole life studying this stuff. But
Yeah, you're right, John. But I think we lost you.
well, anyway, that's an instance of what is often referred to as saints in Scripture when it's translated to mean saints. So at least the translators
It's a
believe
little
that-
different. It's a little
that the
different.
saints,
What is the word
Lord's
you're?
people were the saints.
What
and
are you?
Protestants don't have saints
So,
that are up
let
in
me
heaven,
ask you
correct?
this, Jeff.
They have
Greg,
to have. They have to have saints.
Let me
Otherwise, who's
phrase
Saint
the
Paul and
question
Saint
differently.
Peter? Yeah.
If that word, which is hagios, does not meet the definition of saints, because that's clearly the
Slightly
word.
different. It's not
Okay,
hagios.
then
Read it
find
again in
the-
Greek.
find
in
the-
Greek.
Find the word in Greek that
I have it.
means-
It's right here. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
It's a little different. Taos, hagios. So, Taos is the saints. All right. Hagios means set apart, holy,
Right.
or saint. But we would. So definitions. All right. Well, definitions. There may have 3 or 4 definitions to anything.
Sure,
okay?
a word can have multiple
We,
meanings,
in this
of course.
case, would say that best translate to holy people or Lord's people.
Okay.
Now, a saint, say, okay, define a saint. We wouldn't say holy people because maybe there's holy people living still. We say, no, a saint is defined to be a person that is currently in heaven. They are already made it there. So we separate it. Again, it doesn't change anything. You guys, you can call it saints. It doesn't matter. I'm saying there is something different in a different physical location of a person in heaven and a person on earth. Am I right or not?
Sure.
Do you agree then on the same thing?
We're
You
just
call it
going to
something
call
different.
that a different word. That's
No,
fair.
we call it saint, and we have called it saint for 2,000.
So you
plus
can't
years.
be a saint if you're still alive.
Correct.
Okay.
That's all. So I'm not a saint,
Now,
and that goes along with
not all saints. So everybody that's deceased and is part of the body of Christ is a saint, but not all are canonized. Is that fair?
Very good. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Again, these things are not even worth debating about because it's just different definitions that we've been raised on. So and these definitions change regularly. So even in the Bible,
My point only is that the word hagios is at least every instance that I can see is referring to people on earth, the Lord's people on earth. So that's all.
And that can
means
and
holy, set
you guys
apart,
just
or
agreed to that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you
I don't-
guys
we already
just
agreed
agreed
to
to
that.
that.
I'm not aware
Thank
that
you.
there's another word in Scripture that refers to saints in heaven.
Revelation. All right, let me see.
Okay.
Is there? All right,
There could be. I'm
Hold
just not
on.
aware of it.
Greek. Hold on. Let me,
I'm a hack scholar. I'm not an expert. So
Good discussion nonetheless. And we could have another podcast.
you
on
called
that.
it
The
Taos.
difference.
I don't want to have another time for that.
The.
We're gonna wrap it up right now.
yeah.
Okay.
We're unpacking it. We're gonna wrap it back up in about 2
Hence
seconds.
the name of the podcast.
All right.
Mhm.
Let's see. Where's my thing? We're gonna find.
Yeah.
Is there any word? All right. Okay. There are multiple names, different words for people in heaven.
I'm going to need to do a word study because this
All
is
right, here we go. You ready for them?
sure.
Yes.
Those who are raised, it is raised the spiritual body, which is referring to heaven. Hold on, there's too much. Martyrs, but that's a different type of saint. That's a specific type. Dikos, which is righteous or just, and that's often referring to those. The righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Martyrs, witness, martyr, that can be there. That's still the Greek word martyr, is not changed. And then there's another one in 1 Corinthians, spiritual body, but it's the word is pneumatikos is another word. So because there's so many different names. Oh, there's another one. Indoxos, glorious or exalted. Though it's not a common term for people, is you just describe the glorified state of beings or objects in heaven. All right. Theos, divine or godlike. That's 2 Peter 1:4. Partakers of the divine nature. Huios Theo, son of God, used for Christ, but also believers as children of God in a spiritual sense, such as Romans 8:14. Hagios is the primary term for saints or holy ones. Other terms like dikos, righteous, martyrs, angelos, angels, are often descriptions of people in heaven and their exalted states. So somewhere along the line, in Catholicism and or my own personal belief of it, though I used to teach catechism to new people coming into Catholic faith, I would teach that.
It's like I froze again.
Yeah, I hear you good though. That I would teach that saint. It's always best to refer that somebody that's already in heaven.
There it goes. We're going to cut pretty soon, so I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. That's a good way
I
to.
would say this just in my last 2 cents is from a Protestant point of view. I think most Protestants understand saints to mean that the believers and the saints in heaven In fact, there's a song about all the saints in heaven above rejoice when there's a soul saved. So that's an
Yeah, but
example of,
I
we
know.
call them the saints in heaven. So there's saints on earth and there's saints in heaven. If you don't
Yeah.
say anything otherwise, we probably, we know by context, and usually the context is saints on earth. That's the Protestant understanding, and it's different, I think, than the Catholic understanding. And again, it's a matter of
Yeah.
definition, but that's how we see it.
All the saints go marching in was a
Yep, that's
line
the
of a
saints in
song.
heaven. I'm with
But
you.
it's just it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anything. All right, so for me, it doesn't matter. But I would say that just because a person gets the stigmata doesn't mean that they're going to heaven necessarily. Give you a good
Fair.
example. Judas, he received communion and then immediately went and betrayed Jesus. And so he was a part of the group. He was chosen. He was ordained. He was selected, and he still betrayed him and then jumped off a cliff and killed himself. Right. So just because you're chosen to do something great and even agree to do something great doesn't mean you're getting to heaven, because it's what you do in your final hours. Is going to kind of
I'd agree with that.
etch that in. Yeah. I mean, what if like all of a sudden you're a good person all your life, and then somebody does something and you flip out and kill them and then kill yourself? I mean, are you going to heaven right after that?
Or like
I don't
half
know.
the characters in the Bible, just evil, horrible people that were chosen and
They're certainly
redid
flawed.
the,
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
David,
I mean,
did was messed
horrible.
up. I know.
and that just like gives me hope.
I agree. In fact,
Me
there's
too.
not many
too.
people. There was really only one, and it was Jesus, that really was an unflawed person in the Bible. I mean, they just looked
Well,
down
that's
the
the
list.
point of it.
Exactly.
But okay, well,
Yeah. So I wanted
we
to show
wrap
what
it?
the seraphim looked like really quick. St. Francis, we didn't touch it, so I want to kind of wrap it up with that. So we kind of talked about it, but I wanted to they have, apparently, for those who have seen them, they have 6 wings. Some people have described them having eyes all over the wings, but some paintings have seen some feathers do have, like, may not be that. They may not be ours. They may be spots.
The
right?
evil eyes, I saw there. But anyway.
Well, so anyone who has not seen this would say it looks evil, right?
It does.
But yeah,
It looks
but
like
this is-
Thor or Odin or something.
But this is what they have described the seraphim to look like.
all right.
Interesting.
So yeah, and that's what they've seen, which also kind of looks like the Mothman, which is interesting. Some people have brought that comparison too.
I've always understood seraphim and angelic beings in general to be able to shapeshift. Think of shifters. Honestly, they can take on human form, whatever. They may be limited on all the forms they can take, but they can take on various forms.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
that's my understanding.
Well, yeah.
So the
if you-
Bible teaches shapeshifting. How about
It
that?
does. It does. In even in non-canonical books, like
I know.
I mean, for Catholics, Tobit is a canonical book, but it talks about that very thing, that the angel, was pretending to be human and eating, by mouth, and it was just an illusion. So,
Yep. It's
but-
pretty clear in the Old Testament.
yeah. So, all right. So, very good. All right. So that's the stigmata,
We answered all the questions about it too, didn't we?
no, we didn't.
It's an interesting topic, and I think
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you,
especially
Jeff,
non-Catholics.
for piquing my interest in it. I am
I
interested.
think it's something to consider if with that
Absolutely.
Paul thing in the Bible, because it very well may be have a scriptural basis.
It could be.
And
could
if
be
so, then I think it's worth studying these individuals who've had it. And you know what would be super cool is if Protestants would start believing it and start having it, because it is
I
a
agree.
very amazing miracle if
I agree.
if you can actually go and have it. But it's not going to happen to a person who doesn't believe. It's not going to happen to an atheist. It doesn't
Right.
spontaneously happen to people.
No.
It has to be. They're almost always asked, "Are you willing to suffer in the way of Christ?"
Yeah.
And is your compassion so strong that you're willing to do this? And it has a benefit. It converts many people.
Yes.
And
and
that's
that
what-
would be the reason
Yes.
that I'd like to see an evangelical have
They,
this
it just has to be somebody that
done to them.
asks
They,
for it.
like you said, they would want it. And I know plenty of evangelicals who would want to do God's will, whatever that might look like. And if it looked like that, they'd want to do it. So
Well, then, but that's kind of my thing. I believe that's the only reason why no one else has done it. I mean, they
Yeah.
simply didn't want to. They don't believe it. They don't want to
I
believe it.
get it.
But it definitely has its benefits if it's real. And
Not very many people have moved mountains either. So
No, I haven't seen that one. That one you don't
Now
see
it's,
very often.
I think people want it, but there's something more going on.
Yeah.
But we know we can. We all can do
Well,
it.
I could do it with nuclear bomb, and now. So,
Didn't mean to open up another can of worms.
all right, good. Well, anyway, Greg, you're feeling very green, so I'm gonna say bye
Yeah,
to
I'm looking.
John.
I'm looking.
All right.
Next
Thanks
week-
again.
Let it go.
Wait, next week, really quick, we may. I know you got to go, but we may be having a guest on. We will see if
Okay.
this crap in Pennsylvania gets cleared up. If it does, then we got a guest. But while it's still
Nice.
going on, we don't have a guest. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, cool. Have a good one.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.